Welcome to another episode of the Strength, Fitness, and Health Show, giving you thought-provoking, rip-soaring, gnarly absorbing, everything and anything fitness you can think of. This is the Strength, Fitness, and Health Show with Steven Durant.
Welcome to the Strength, Fitness and Health podcast. Please hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Now, before we dive into this episode with Emilina Lomas, I would like to read her impressive bio. Emilina is a clinically trained nutritionist and health writer who has been working freelance for the past 4 years after leaving her consulting job at a Fortune 500 company. Emilina has worked with top health wellness brands, including the NFL, that is the National Football League, Muscle and Strength, and Bulletproof Labs, and manages written content for many professional athletes, and she has also contributed to the SFH magazine. She is currently living in the beautiful Orange County, and if you would like to get hold of Emilina, you can go to emilinalomas.com, or if you want to follow her on her socials, it's Emilina Wellness. Now let's go into episode 1 with Emilina Lomas. So, Emilina, how did you get into fitness and health writing for the NFL, Muscle and Strength, health.com?
So I initially did a degree in nutrition, a bachelor's and a master's degree, and I qualified as a personal trainer, and that was kind of where I saw my life going. But then when I graduated from university, I kind of did what everyone did and freaked out a little bit about what job I was going to get and how I was going to start paying back my student loan. So I applied for a few grad schemes, and I ended up getting one and working in consulting. And I ended up doing that for just over a year, and I really hated it. I did not enjoy working in the corporate world at all. So I ended up quitting, and that's when I qualified as a personal trainer. And then my intention was to start working as a trainer while I figure out what my next move was. But then in the time that I was taking my qualification to be a personal trainer, I started writing about health and fitness on a freelancing platform called Fiverr. And if you know anything about this platform, it's like a lot of people use it, but there's like a very select amount of people who are able to make money from it because it's very competitive.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I think because I had such a niche skill set, like I was qualified in health and fitness, so that gave me a boost. And then also because I was genuinely super passionate about it, so that really helped. And I started writing there and making some clients, and it just kind of went from there. I really enjoyed doing it, so it just kind of became my passion, and I just continued writing from Fiverr for like a year. And then I realized that I was making enough money to live on that, so I didn't actually need to get another job. So luckily I was able to quit my corporate job and just go straight into freelancing full time. And I've been doing that for the last 4 years now.
Oh, fantastic. Did you do anything before the corporate world in fitness? Like, did you grow up doing anything?
Yeah, so I played hockey when I was growing up, like field hockey for Americans. And
yeah,
I did that a lot. I was actually really into that. I ran track. I was a sprinter. So I was always really into sports and fitness. But then when I started university, I obviously wasn't playing hockey anymore from my school. So, and I didn't want to join the sports teams because they were just like all about drinking, and I wasn't really into that. So I stopped playing sports, and I just became like unhappy because I wasn't being physically active. And I think that's like a really important component in your mental health. So I kind of lost touch with it for a while, and I really noticed a massive difference in just like my mood and productivity and everything. So then I kind of got into the gym. I like joined a local gym and started going there and learning more about lifting weights, because that was something that I hadn't previously done. Before that, it was just like body weight stuff or running or playing sports. So learning about that was really interesting. And then after that, I just started lifting weights and getting into that. And I did that for quite a while throughout the rest of my university and then beyond. And I've been doing that now for a long time.
It sounds like you have as well. I mean, looking at your Instagram, I mean, it looks like you've been lifting for a while though. Did you have any training on it, or did you teach yourself?
No, I mean, I just taught myself. Like, I obviously did become a personal trainer, but that was like way after I started lifting. But I mean, there are really great resources online, and that was kind of why I was inspired to become a fitness writer, because I would spend literally hours and hours a day just reading blogs like bodybuilding.com and just like learning stuff about it, making notes, listening to podcasts, reading books. And I just learned so much from all the free resources that are out there that it just like really catapulted my interest in adding to that, because I personally had gained so much insight by doing that. So I kind of made a library of all the resources that I found the most interesting, and I kind of used them for inspiration for when I then started writing about similar topics.
Because you go into in depth in your topics. Is that something that you've always been able to do? Or is that something you bring in from the corporate world that you've learned how to do that?
Well, so I obviously both my degrees are in science, so bachelor's of science and master's of science. So everything was always about making a claim and backing it up with a study
Yeah.
or research. So that's just kind of something that's ingrained in me. And I definitely think that it helped when I did get corporate experience, because again, you just like really can't make claims that are not backed up. So I think it was just kind of both of those. And also, I think just like my personality traits, I think it's really bad in the health and fitness industry how a lot of claims are just taken from nowhere, and there's no evidence. They're just like completely random mythical claims that people believe, and they are actually really detrimental to a lot of people. So I think that that's something I really wanted to avoid. I really wanted to kind of debunk a lot of the myths out there, and the best way to do that is with science. And I mean, there is really amazing in-depth research papers out there that you can get a lot from, and that's a great way to progress in fitness, because you're basing everything you do on research, and that means that you're more likely to get results from doing it, as opposed to just doing something that you think maybe might work and then doing it for long enough that you lose motivation and then it never garners you any results, as opposed to like actually doing something that's regimented and based in science and will 100% give you the results that you're expecting.
That is one thing what you just said there. Most people don't actually know where to start on research. Where would you say is like the best place to start on research? If say someone was starting from scratch and wanted to lose weight, get into fitness, where would they start?
I would probably recommend personally is just Googling an article like the science of weight loss. And it would just be a really simple article that just explains how you can lose weight according to science. And it's just very, very simplified, because I think once you understand the reason behind doing something, it's a lot easier to implement. And if you don't like reading, you can also watch YouTube videos.
Yeah,
There are millions of YouTube videos about,
hundreds. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I definitely think that doing that is a great way to learn the science behind what you're doing, and that will motivate you to do it properly. And then when you do something properly, like I said, you do get results, and that is extremely motivating as well.
It is. And what inspires you? Like, what inspires you to keep healthy and fit? As it's hard to get fit, but it's easier to stay fit and healthy. So, what inspires you to get up each morning, go to the gym, make your nice healthy smoothie? What is it that inspires you?
Okay, so initially when I first started working out, it was probably just because I had started university and gained weight, because I feel like every person does, especially women when they start university, because you're staying up late, drinking, eating crappy food, not exercising. And that caused me to gain weight, like not substantially, but enough for me to be depressed.
Enough for you to notice, obviously. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I just didn't like that. I hated it, and for the first time, I felt like really insecure about my weight, which was something that I
yeah,
had experienced because I'd been playing sports my whole life. So I guess my first motivation, I guess, into like health and fitness was kind of rooted in feeling like I needed to change. But that wasn't what kept me doing it. And I think that that's a really key difference. Like you can start doing something because you're unhappy, but feeling unhappy about your body is not going to motivate you to work out every day. That's just going to make you depressed. I think it's enough to give you the initial push, but then once you start working out, you really get addicted to it because it's a great way to just kind of like take time for yourself and just like disconnect from the world. Like you're really like in flow state when you're working out. And there's really no better feeling than feeling accomplished after a workout and knowing that you're like one step closer to being like a better version of yourself. So I think that that really became like addicting. And I started doing that a lot, like working out every day, obviously. And yeah, I just loved it. And then for how I stay fit now, it's kind of the same reason. Like I just really enjoy working out and I enjoy the feeling I get after a workout. And I think that if you look at the science of how habits are formed, that's kind of the key to it, is having a reward and noticing the reward from the habit. So for example, like every time I finish a workout, I feel like really happy and so much more clear-minded and ready to go, and everything's like way better than it was prior to my workout. So like noticing that and creating a habit cycle of like cue, routine, reward is like a really great way to ingrain exercise into your current routine so that you kind of enjoy doing it and you're obviously consistent too.
No, that's pretty good habits. And would you say that endorphins as well is something that is like an addictive, feeling in the gym that keeps people going back?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like when I say like I felt good after my workout, it wasn't just like an emotional or mental thing. It was like a biochemical shift in your hormones, like
Yeah,
endorphins being released and oxytocin and brain derived neurotropic factor. When those are released, like you biochemically feel better and your brain is able to function more optimally. So it really is like a transformative difference between prior to working out versus after working out, especially if you actually enjoy lifting weights too. Because I mean, a lot of people that I've worked with or met don't actually enjoy working out. So that is a bit of a different situation for them. They need to just like completely look forward to how they're going to feel after, or just learn to find a type of exercise that is more enjoyable for them. So if they don't like lifting weights, like maybe try a dance class, try yoga, try a HIIT class like F45. So it's just like finding something that you like and just like learning to appreciate how good it makes you feel whilst you're doing it or after you've already done it.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, I found out that you know, swimming, biking, and running are three of my favorites, which is basically a triathlon, and that's why next year I am going to be doing my Ironman.
Oh.
Um, so yes, I do agree with that. One other question that is similar is: are some people gifted with the intrinsicness of being an athlete than some people aren't? That some people can be very good in the gym and keep it going. Some people are talented in that way.
Yeah, I mean, people have different muscle compositions, so like fast twitch muscles. People who have fast twitch muscles are better able to build muscle mass and have better VO2 endurance. So there's the likelihood that they will be better athletes, and that is a genetic component. So yeah, I definitely think that it is probably like 30% genetics. So I actually did a DNA test recently and it said that I was in the worst or least optimal category for
I,
physical
I
fitness.
did see that on your Instagram.
Yeah, so basically I was saying that I have a predisposition for or propensity for fat gain, and I'll struggle to build muscle. That's what it was saying, and that's based on my genetics entirely. So that is a component, and for people who are like top tier athletes, yeah, that is genetics. Like Michael Phelps, for example, his wingspan is I think it's like 7.5 feet or something. It's like crazy. And also studies show that he produces half of the lactic acid that other people produce,
Yeah.
which is something associated with your ability for endurance. So I definitely think that genetics do play a role, especially if you're trying to be an elite athlete, like, because the 1% or 2% is going to make a massive difference. But I think for the average person, genetics are really not an excuse for being good or bad at anything athletic, because you can really train your body by incorporating different strategies. Like, for example, with the example of myself, I know that I gain fat really, really easily. So I just have to be strict on my diet. I don't eat any refined carbohydrates. I don't eat sugar. I really don't drink any alcohol. And incorporating those kind of things combined with intermittent fasting and having like a lower carbohydrate intake and a higher fat intake and protein, I think that that's really helped me stay lean, even though I don't have a genetic advantage to do so. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that it's about knowing your genetic propensity and then adding in strategies that can optimize your training and nutrition. And that's a lot of people aren't aware of that, and they don't need to be aware of that because they're not trying to be a top tier athlete. And a lot of people do have average genetics, meaning that they are kind of moderately able to gain muscle and moderately able to lose fat, which means that they're never going to be drastically affected by their genetics. Like, unfortunately, I'm in the worst category, so it is something that I do have to be aware of. And but it's not like life changing. Like, now that I'm aware of it, I can implement like small strategies or make little adjustments to my diet and training so I can get the best results.
So what test was that? What how does it work?
It's called Vital Health. I think it's actually a UK company. And they sent me like a thing in the mail, and I did like a little pinprick of blood, and then they just analyze it. So, I mean, in terms of its accuracy, I don't 100% know like how accurate it is, but I think it's a good way to get an insight into your genetics and how they influence other factors like your health.
Yeah. So the categories, what are the categories that are listed, I suppose?
There was a ton listed that were like sugar metabolism, skin, hair, nails, pregnancy, like
Wow.
fat during pregnancy. Yeah,
They can do
your
all that as well. That's
yeah, and it was like caffeine metabolism, stress, and anxiety. Like, there was a ton of different traits that they tested for. And I mean, for the average person who does it, you're not going to see like, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. You're going to see like maybe a few impactful traits, and then it will explain what lifestyle or diet factors that you can alter to kind of work around this genetic propensity. So if you found out that you did have struggle to metabolize caffeine, then obviously you could just not drink caffeine, or you could add like MCTO in it, which will slow the absorption of caffeine. So that's like a great tip for people who struggle with that.
right. It's probably not that good for hypochondriacs. They don't really want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's me. I'm a hypochondriac.
It's
I
like,
like the data. I think it's, for me, that helps me feel better about
so
my health.
you know how healthy you are, you know what to do,
Exactly.
if something's going to help you along the way. Well, fantastic. So in your opinion, what would be the most important nutritional fact and why, in your opinion?
I think it would just be that eating the most nutrient dense food is important. I think that gets lost in the health and fitness industry. I think a lot of the focus is put on calories, and that just like really is only like 10% of the picture. So, for example, the whole if it fits your macros theory like isn't actually true. And I wrote an article about this that completely debunked it, because a calorie isn't just a calorie. It has like a lot of other factors that go into that.
Yeah.
So the nutritional composition, how it's metabolized, its effect on your hormones. Like, a lot of foods are endocrine disruptors, which means that they impact your ability to produce certain hormones or for your body's ability to reach homeostasis. So that is really dangerous, actually. And that's a lot of chemicals that are in foods, especially in the US. Those kind of chemicals are really dangerous, and a lot of people are eating them all the time. And that can cause a whole ton of issues, like issues getting pregnant. It can cause like chronic acne. It can cause sleep issues, anxiety. Like there's a ton of different symptoms associated with endocrine disruptors. So that is a major thing to be aware of. And like in terms of a calorie not being a calorie, if you're just focused on hitting a certain caloric target all the time, you're going to be missing out on key other markers, like how much protein is in your diet, or how many micronutrients you're getting, or phytonutrients, or whatever it is. It's all about getting enough nutrients in certain compositions. So you really don't want to just focus on calories, because of course you could lose weight from eating 1,000 calories of candy a day, because you're in a caloric deficit. So your body is forced to burn muscle and fat tissue. So but that's not ideal, and that's not going to get you into better health. Like actually, it would be better to eat slightly less food if you're trying to lose weight, but have like a good composition of protein, carbs, and fat, and an abundance of micronutrients, because then you're giving your body the tools to function optimally. So your body can focus on losing weight without struggling to metabolize all these other chemicals and crap in your diet that is going to have like a really big effect on your health in other ways, even if it's not necessarily making you lose a certain amount of weight or gain a certain amount of weight. Because when it comes to your health, like it's not just how much you weigh, it's also like the composition of your meals and how many nutrients are in your body at all times.
So what would you say, nutritional fact, what would you say to avoid if that was the case? Like what foods I know processed foods we should really avoid, but what would be the most important one to avoid?
I personally would say refined carbohydrates. So that's like white rice, white pasta, pastries, donuts. Like that is just
the good stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, that's just like really, there is nothing good in that. Like it's just energy. Like it's a sugar, so it's energy. And a lot of people don't understand that those kind of foods are the exact same as if you just sat there and ate like gummy worms or some kind of like haribo or whatever. Yeah, it's literally just sugar. And I think when people see like white rice, they're like, oh, but it's rice, so it's not candy. But it's like, no, your body metabolizes it exactly the same. Like it's going to spike your blood sugar. If you do that too many times, it's going to mess with your insulin sensitivity, which over time can lead to type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, which is really dangerous. And when you do spike your blood sugar a lot, it can give the illusion of feeling hungry and never satiated, because it impacts your ghrelin and leptin, which are two hunger and satiety hormones. And that's really dangerous if you do that frequently, because what ends up happening is that even though you're calorically satiated, you feel hungry. So you will keep craving sugar because your body is trying to get your blood sugar regulated, because your insulin is no longer functioning correctly. So you're craving sugar, you're overeating, and then you're caught in a cycle of like feeling crap and using food to try and regulate your blood sugar, which is something that you never want to do, because that's when you get into a cycle of overeating and relying on food. So I think that's like my main takeaway is just don't eat refined carbohydrates. Like switch every refined carbohydrate to a complex carb, and you'll feel so much better. And longer term, you'll be able to lose weight or regulate your hormones or whatever it is that your main health focus is. I think that it's going to be achieved better if you just cut out refined carbohydrates. And obviously there are caveats to that. So a lot of people who do eat refined carbohydrates in the fitness industry do so immediately after their workouts, because they're easy to digest, and they quickly replenish depleted glycogen. So that is beneficial, and that is the caveat. But that is for like elite athletes, and that's
sort of like the glycemic index when it gets into that sort of area where you're looking at your carbohydrate intake, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, well, the glycemic index is just a index of how quickly a food spikes your blood sugar. So high glycemic index foods are refined carbohydrates. But I mean, a lot of people in the fitness industry that I've come across have like some kind of like candy in their like gym bag, and immediately after their workout they'll have a protein shake and then a few gummy bears or whatever. And I understand why they do that, and that is beneficial and that can help with anabolism. So that's like
I had a tip from a marathon runner when I was training for the Ironman that I was meant to do this year, to have haribo in my pocket as I was running, and I just was like, okay, I try it, and it worked. It did. I could feel like when I know I had my SOS tablets and my gels and a few Haribo, and it actually worked. The Haribos did work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that really, really, really quickly replenishes your glycogen stores, because when you consume Haribos, there's no fiber attached to it. So it immediately turns into glucose. So it spikes your blood sugar, which is exactly what you want to happen if you're running a marathon or if you're an elite athlete, because that will help your body work better because it's in an anabolic state.
Yeah.
So that's like ideal. But I think a lot of people miss out is the fact that you're not an elite athlete. You just sometimes lift weights and you really don't need to be eating refined carbohydrates after your workout, because you have way more fish to fry. Like, you don't need to be worried about getting that 1% to be like primed hormonally. So I think the best thing to do for those people is to just have a carb dense meal after your workout, but it doesn't necessarily have to be refined carbohydrates, or if it is, then white rice is probably better than donuts or pastries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe brown rice.
Exactly. That would be better.
So what do you wish you had known when you first started out, like back in the day, like 4 or 5 years ago? What would you say you would have wanted to know that you found out now?
So I would probably just say that it kind of goes back to what I was just saying before. Like, everything that you do is either scientifically proven or it's not.
Sure.
And if someone is touting a benefit anecdotally, that is not reflective of it actually being rooted in science. So, for example, I remember when I first started like getting into health and fitness, I was vegan, and that was obviously in part because I loved animals and I didn't want to hurt any animals. But it was also because I was looking on social media and there was a ton of like really skinny girls who were just eating bananas all day, and they were doing this raw till 4 thing where they only eat raw foods until 4 p.m. and then they eat like literally a ton of brown rice. And it was just like really insane to me now I think back. And that was something that I thought, wow, they look good, therefore what they're doing must work. And that was like my understanding. And even at that stage, I had done a good amount of academia in my life, and I still didn't understand that that wasn't necessarily true. Like, just because something works for one person, it doesn't mean it's universally accepted as a truth. So I think that if I could change anything now, or if I knew something when I started, it would just be to not trust anecdotes and not trust people because they look good. It's a way different thing to trust someone because they have done a master's degree in exercise science, for example. Like, that is someone you should trust because they've done the academic research and it's all evidence-based and rooted in science. So if they make any claims, it's because they know as a fact that it works, as opposed to going on social media and seeing a really attractive girl and thinking, oh my God, she's so hot, I'm just going to completely copy her workout plan and her diet, because if she eats like that, then I'm going to eat like that and I'm going to look like that. And it's like, that is just a waste of your time. It's going to impact your mental health. And I definitely think that it's something that could be easily avoided, especially if young girls, especially, just took a step back from social media when they're first starting out with their fitness journey. And instead of comparing themselves to how other people looked, they just focused on what they're doing and implementing the strategy that they have been provided by a personal trainer, for example. I think that would be a much better way to start out for your progress, your results, and also your mental health and that kind of component.
I think that's a big one, mental health and nutritional facts, especially for the younger generation. And in these times now, we're in a pandemic at the moment. The mental health game, obviously at the moment it's going to be significant more in the future from now. What would you say would be one good thing to have in your diet to maybe avoid the mental health drain or the drain of life,
Yeah. I mean, especially just like cutting out processed food is a really good thing to do, because any kind of
Yeah.
processed food is very taxing on your body. So that's a surefire way to increase cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So cutting out that is a good idea. Another good idea is just to cut out coffee, because that does spike your adrenaline and cortisol. So that can
really.
so that can create a state of physiological stress. Even if you're not mentally stressed, your body is reacting in a way as if it was responding to actual psychological stress. So there are shortcuts, like I mentioned. You can have MCT oil that will help to avoid that.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just not having coffee on an empty stomach / having it first thing in the morning, because in the morning your cortisol levels are the highest, because that's what wakes you up in the morning. So you don't want to add to that, especially if you're predisposed to feeling stress and anxiety. You don't want to have coffee on top of already feeling anxious. So yeah, improving your diet composition, like having less taxing foods. And for some people that can also include cutting the amount of high fiber foods that you have in your diet. And even though fiber is amazing and really important and not enough people get enough of it, for people who have sensitive digestive systems, it could be a good idea to slightly decrease the amount of fiber you're eating, because fiber is quite hard to digest, and a lot of it doesn't get digested. And that's why it's called prebiotic fiber. But so it's really beneficial. I have to say that it's really good. But I think for people who are feeling mentally stressed, and if they have the situation where they feel mentally stressed and that impacts their digestion, having less fibrous foods can be a really good idea, because you just don't want to add any more physiological stress to your body. So that's a good tip. And then just avoiding alcohol, avoiding coffee, and avoiding processed food. So basically all the fun stuff, just don't do that.
Just don't do that. I also heard another one that might be good. Is it lemon and water in the morning good?
I don't think there's any connection there between that and stress, but I mean, it might be like mentally
to reset the body or something.
Yeah, no, there's no science.
No. See, there you go. Fake news again. Just read that in an article.
Yeah, I think another good thing that I didn't mention is ashwagandha and other herbal supplements. Ashwagandha is a root herb, and that has been shown in research to reduce cortisol levels and incidences of stress. So that can be a really good thing to take. And also nutrient deficiencies often manifest as stress.
Yeah.
So like vitamin D is closely associated with markers of physiological and psychological stress. So ensuring that you're taking all the right supplements is a great way to start. You can get blood work done to see like which supplements you need to take. But if you're unsure, I usually recommend fish oil, probiotics, vitamin D, and zinc can be really good. But I wouldn't have that on an empty stomach, because it can make you feel really sick in the morning.
Yeah, I recently started taking the fish oils again. My wife, we watched Joe Rogan's podcast with Miley Cyrus, and she said something really interesting about the fish oils, and I think it's actually made a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially if you're vegetarian or vegan, fish oil, like, I mean, I get it. Fish oil isn't vegan, so that might be a difficult one for people who are vegan. But omega-3s are really important for stress, anxiety, any kind of mental issue that you're going through. Omega-3s are really important, because omega-3s are actually used as one of your brain's fuel sources.
Yeah, the fatty acids.
Yeah, and I can't actually remember the statistic. I think it's 60% of your brain is actually made of DHA, which is a type of fatty acid.
Yeah.
So it's really important to have that. And I think if you don't have that in your diet, which I'm guessing that you don't if you're vegan, because omega-3s come from fish and also like nuts and seeds in very small quantities, it's a really important thing to supplement with, because you don't want to see your body feeling deficient in omegas, because that can have like really bad effects on your mental and physical health.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, after taking it, I feel a little bit more cognitive enhanced. Less fog, brain fog. That was one of them, which actually helps a lot. And one other thing, what would you say for people struggling with anxiety in this pandemic? Is there anything we can alleviate anxiety on the body?
Well, the best thing you can do is just breathe, because that sounds like kind of airy fairy and sounds like it wouldn't be rooted in science, but actually it's really rooted in science. Like as little as 5 deep breaths can decrease your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. So that can really make a profound difference. And that's just 5 deep breaths. So breathing down into your lower stomach is how you kind of initiate that
So I
experience.
should sit up straight when you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just slowly, like, that will really like improve your hormones, and it will just help you feel better about yourself and your life, and it's really, really powerful. So I think that breathing throughout your day and just being mindful, and also doing some kind of meditation practice, that doesn't have to be like sitting cross-legged, like burning incense, being a hippie, but it does mean that you're taking time each day to just relax your brain and to just like remind yourself that you're like here in the moment right now. Because a lot of people, especially with the rise of social media, are constantly feeling disconnected from the real world, and that
Yeah.
can just make you feel constantly stressed out, constantly having too much exposure to like TV screens and computer screens and everything.
Yes. Yeah.
So
So
like
yeah.
having that is just a bad idea. So it's always better to just like focus on being in your body in that specific moment, and that will help you calm down, and that can be like really powerful. So that's definitely something to do. And another thing is just to exercise. Like exercising has a profound effect on your brain, as we mentioned earlier. Like the brain derived neurotrophic factor, endorphins, oxytocin, those kind of hormones and neurotransmitters are really beneficial for helping to alleviate stress in your body and mind. So that's another thing. The third thing I would say is to take probiotics and to have a lot of gut friendly foods, because your gut and your brain are very closely linked in the gut brain axis, which is the vagus nerve. And if you are feeling mentally stressed, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to be having an issue in your gut. And that can manifest as digestive issues like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, whatever. Or it could also manifest the other way around. So if you're having digestive issues, maybe from eating too many high fiber foods, such as being on a vegan diet, that can then manifest as mental anxiety or stress. So the two are extremely closely linked, and that's actually what I wrote my master's dissertation on. So I know a lot about that.
Okay. Yeah.
I definitely think that it's really important for people to protect their gut and really, really ensure that you're not like overdoing it with the fiber, or you're not having enough like healthy bacteria going into your gut. And you can affect the amount of bacteria in your gut to some extent by like taking probiotics, eating probiotic rich foods like high quality dairy, and also consuming prebiotic foods. So that's like,
Is that ghee? Have you tried ghee? Is that a one you put in the coffee? The
yeah,
bulletproof coffee?
as far as I know, that's not a probiotic food. It might have a low concentration of probiotics in, but I don't think it's known to be like a high probiotic food. And you need to have a probiotic food that has a high strain bacterial count, because a lot of the bacteria is going to be lost during digestion. So you need to have like 600 million strands or something, and that
Wow.
is only really found in certain dairy produce that is like very fresh and organic. But yeah, so having prebiotic foods as well, like sauerkraut and certain fibers, like that's going to be really beneficial, because when you consume those, they're not metabolized during digestion. So they go into your gut and they essentially act as fuel for the bacteria in your gut so that they can grow in concentrations. And that's really beneficial. But apart from that, it is somewhat genetic, like, and also your exposure to antibiotics, when you're young. So if you've taken a lot of antibiotics, you're killing the bacteria in your gut. That's pretty hard to come back from. So a lot of people do actually have quite low concentrations of bacteria in their gut, and that's just from over the course of their life, like being exposed to things that kill bacteria. So too much alcohol, taking antibiotics, too much stress, and also not being breastfed or not being birthed vaginally, like C-section people have lower concentrations of bacteria. And they're obviously things that you can't change now. So for people who that does apply to, it's really important to take the highest quality probiotic supplements, and to also take like really a lot of probiotic rich foods. That's also really important.
I did notice that recently probiotics has been a big thing, especially with supplements. I've seen a lot of people on the Instagram like posting about them as well. Is it one reason why do you think people's stress levels go down as well? Probiotics.
Yeah, taking probiotic supplements hasn't been shown in much research to have any beneficial effects in terms of stress, but that's predominantly just because the research hasn't been conducted. But in terms of like it being a tenuous link, like there are links to gut health and cognitive health. So I definitely think that despite it being a tenuous link and not entirely backed up by research, there's a lot of good grounds for that to be super beneficial. And even if it doesn't help your mental health directly, like you're not going to take one probiotic and then immediately feel completely alleviated of anxiety, because for conditions like chronic stress and anxiety, there are a lot of factors that come into play. So like your relationships with others, like how healthy your body is in terms of like body fat composition, and your work fulfillment. Like there's a ton of different factors. So it's definitely a good place to start, especially if you've never experienced anxiety before and you don't feel mentally stressed, but you feel like physically stressed. That's a good indication that something's going on in your gut. And if that is the case, I would recommend immediately coming off a vegan or vegetarian diet if that's something that you're experiencing, taking probiotics, prebiotics, and a lot of collagen, because that's very gut friendly, and just drinking a lot of water as well.
Yeah, that's one to keep up as well. Well, let's look at wrapping up shortly, because I've had lots of your time. One more question. Who would you say influenced you to become healthy, fit, or would you say that you just came across it? Did you have any sort of influences in your pursuits to health?
No, I feel like I actually started working out prior to the rise of the fitness influencer. Like Instagram's definitely a thing, but I feel like being like a fitness girl or guy on social media like really wasn't. So there was no like fitness influences that particularly inspired me, but I definitely think that a lot of blogs inspired me.
Yeah.
Like bodybuilding.com and muscle and fitness and muscle and strength, those kind of blogs, because I really found it interesting that a lot of people can completely transform their health, their physical and mental health, just by committing to a healthy habit and doing it consistently. And I think that inspired me. But in terms of any like specific people, no, not at all.
Not at all. Not like your Arnold Schwarzeneggers of the world.
I mean, I think that's awesome. Like I've always really loved watching fitness documentaries. Like even The Dawn Wall. I don't know if you've seen that. Really good. And any kind of like fitness documentary about bodybuilders or elite athletes, like that has always really sparked my interest, because these people are physical specimens, and obviously that's partly genetics, as I mentioned earlier, but that is like pretty much like 70-80% just hard work and commitment. And I think it's really interesting when you think about that, because a lot of people don't commit to their health and then are unhappy, and it's really easily reversed. Like all you have to do is start by making a commitment to being healthy and looking after your body and looking after your mind, and then that will just go on from there. So I think it's a good idea to get inspiration from others, but I don't think it's going to be enough to motivate you throughout all the peaks and troughs of your fitness journey. I think it's way more important to find the motivation within yourself to commit to be better. And that's kind of the argument of like discipline versus motivation. And for me, I always say that discipline trumps every time, because you're never going to have consistent motivation. Like there's many days that I don't want to eat healthy or work out, but I do it because I'm disciplined, and that's how you get results. Is just by being disciplined.
Yeah, I suppose people learning and educating themselves, in that aspect of fitness and health, just education in that is just one thing to, I suppose, influence yourself, educate yourself. Yeah. Well, thank you. I've had plenty of your time. For the listeners, where can they find you on socials?
So my Instagram is Emilina Wellness, and my website is emilinalomas.com.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi guys, just wanted to remind you that you can download the free issue of the Strength Fitness and Health Greg Plitt issue for free. Go to sfhmagazine.com and follow the links. See you later. Bye-bye.